So all those technologies, we're trying to work out, okay, is it important that I know how to reference, or is it okay to let technology do that for me? We're trying to work out what that is it okay for me to understand how to write the flow of an argument, or is it okay if generative AI does that for me and I just copy and paste because, I inputted it, so I at least know what the question was. Somewhere in the middle there is the helpful answer between having to type out your own bibliography to having ChatGPT write your essay for you. There is somewhere in that tension, and that's what the shock absorber is helping us to do, is we explore with others, look at different experiences. And so I think it's good to be wise about technology. It's good to be careful. This is why we start with theology, go through strategy before we get to practice.
Hello everyone, welcome back to the Shock Absorber podcast, and it is excellent to have you along with us along this rambunctious journey. Just going to keep trying to come up with that. Welcome, Tim. How are you?
I'm doing well, thanks.
Are you ready to be rambunctious tonight?
Oh, I'm looking forward to it. I don't think I could give you a definition of rambunctious, but I've got a picture in my head.
I like that word, rambunctious. Yeah.
Rambunctious. It feels like it goes with toddler. Rambunctious
yes,
toddler.
I agree. Yeah. Yes, I think so. I'm like, oh, look at this. She's a bit rambunctious. So I think that my youngest daughter's a bit like that. So
I can see that.
Yeah.
She's a barrel of laughs.
She is actually. She makes me laugh a lot.
Yeah.
And she makes jokes and stuff, and I enjoy it a great deal. Well done, Remy. Love you.
Shout out.
You're awesome. Tim,
yes.
You are writing talks
yes.
for a, what is it, year 4 to 6 camp, isn't it? It's called
year 3 to year 6,
year
yes.
3 to 6.
Square one. So we've talked about it before. If people have been travelling with us, I've kind of given field reports from our time on Square One. This year, we are taking Soul Revival Church later in the year, so in spring. But we're now, at the time of recording, 2 weekends away from being on winter Square One, where I'm not taking our crew, but I am doing the talks for the other churches who are coming along. So, yes, I've been writing the talks for that, working with a great team, Adam Jolliffe and Elise Patton, who, putting that together, and it's great. We're looking at the theme of new creation.
Okay. Something you're quite excited about.
I love new creation. Yeah.
And what's coming out of the talks? How are the talks coming along? How's your preparation?
Preparation probably should be further along than
I'm glad you didn't ask.
Thank you for asking. By the time you hear this, dear listener or watcher, I should be a lot further along.
That's good.
No, it's going well. So the 4 talks that we're doing, we want to think about new creation. That's the big overarching theme. The 4 talks are: what is Jesus doing now? What happens when Jesus comes back? What are Christians looking forward to? And what are Christians doing now? Which kind of loops all the way back around to a base of so what kind of mode. Yeah. So those are the 4 talks. So they're our guiding questions, and then we've got answers to each of those. One of the key things that we are trying to do is to build a positive understanding of the age to come. And we live at a time where our Christian tradition has given us some kind of funky ideas of what it's like to live in the age to come. And so
at least our understanding.
Our understanding, is perhaps not as biblical and we're sometimes surprised that it's not as biblical as we think it might be, because it's shaped more by medieval pop culture and the sort of imagery and ideas that come from that. One of the ideas I'm going to be playing with is, have you ever seen those medieval bestiaries where they draw pictures of animals that they haven't seen? So,
yes.
Yeah, so someone's travelled to deepest, darkest Africa, and they've come back with stories about hippopotamuses and giraffes and elephants, but they didn't bring a sample back. They come with these stories, and they're trying to describe these animals to people who haven't seen the animals. And so we'll give it a try. So if you were to try and describe a giraffe to someone who has never seen a giraffe, has no idea what a giraffe looks like, how would you describe a giraffe?
Like a big dog with a long neck.
Okay.
Kind of thing. And that's what they draw. I've seen.
And then, so you then get these people drawing these basically pictorial encyclopedias and they draw a big dog with a long neck and sometimes with spot, and they can be hilariously wrong. And I'm using that as a bit of idea of sometimes our picture of what the age to come is like and what eternity is like is hilariously wrong. And we end up with these pictures of floating like angels in the sky and playing harps, and you hear those, very kind of Simpsons kind of understanding of, cloud goes up, cloud goes down. And this comes from kind of reading the Bible, but then telling people about it, and then the medieval explosion of artwork that was a lot of clouds and glory and angels and all these kinds of things. And so our imagination now as Christians is largely shaped by that. And what we've lost of what is true about new creation from the Bible is the deep physicality and reality of the new heavens and the new earth, and the resurrected physical body that we will have, and the resurrected earth that we will live on, that it is physical. It has actual trees and actual grass and actual rivers and actual sand dunes, and there are things that we'll still be able to explore, and how much it will map onto our reality, it's kind of like it's not very clear. But we do see the clearest we have, which is still not very clear, is Jesus' resurrection body, which was remarkably like him. So there was a theologians say a continuity between the Jesus before resurrection, the Jesus after resurrection. His friends, once they got over the shock, could recognize him. He still had the same, ears, nose, mouth, hair, shape. Like his body was still proportioned the same, and yet he was in somewhat glorious. Paul talks about that in Corinthians, saying we also, like him, will be raised to glory, and we have a imperishable body. This body will sort of perish. We'll have an imperishable body, but there is continuity. Like I think you'll still look like Joel. There'll still be significant Joelness to you. There'll still be significant Timness to me, but it'll be even more glorified. And you connect that with Romans 8 and the idea that the creation groans to be released from its bondage, and I think you get the same kind of idea. Paul doesn't exactly use resurrection language in Romans 8, but I think the connection is there, that the creation likewise will be kind of the same but more glorious. Now, does that mean the Port Hacking River is going to be still there? Like the Cronulla sand dunes going to be like they are, or maybe what they were before we mined them? Like, I don't know. Like, is Everest still going to be the tallest mountain? What exactly it's going to look like, we're not sure, but it is definitely physical. It's definitely creation made new and resurrected into a newness, and which we get to explore. And so what we're trying to do, I'm not approaching it like a Mythbusters kind of like, let me tell you all the things you know wrong. Because as kids, I just want to start from a positive and say, here is what it looks like. Here is what we're looking forward to. So that third talk particularly, what are Christians looking forward to? Christians are looking forward to life face to face with Jesus in a resurrected, renewed creation. That's what we're looking forward to. That's the big thing that we're kind of focusing on. So I've been loving putting the talks together. It's been lots of fun.
I was going to say, you sound like you're having fun. There's excitement in your voice.
I get really positive about it, and working with Adam Jolliffe is the creative genius behind the talks as well. So he does all of the stuff like puppets and magic and all that kind of stuff. So he's going to be helping embed those kinds of things, so that it's not just me being excited but serious. It's also some levity in there as well. Playfulness, yes. He's very playful in a really positive way. So
that's awesome. Yeah. Good on him for doing that, and good on you for doing the talks. That's great. I wanted to just hit on the bit where you were talking about what we've lost.
Right,
that was interesting. And I've been thinking about that a little bit this week. Basically, something kind of to do with how grappling with the idea of like tech or certain technologies replacing the things that we hold dear, or sometimes, the things that we truly find pleasure in. And I think sometimes they are things that we don't even realize we find pleasure in them until they're taken away. And so what prompted me to think about this was, I've talked about before on this podcast, I'm a big fan of motor racing. But in particular, prior to Formula One, it was rallying, which is, if you don't know what rallying is, it's a car more like the car you see on a road, but made to be a racing car.
Okay.
But it's a race against the clock, and they do it on real roads. So it could be tarmac roads, could be dirt roads, gravel, could be a mixture of the two, all that kind of thing. And there's a kind of accepted wisdom across motor racing that rally drivers are the best drivers in the world. They can also rally on snow. Rally Sweden is in snow. And so I've kind of drifted away from being interested in rallying from when it was in the 90s, the early 2000s, where there was like multiple manufacturers and some great personalities and drivers that I really loved. I've been to a number of Rally Australias and Rally New Zealands to spectate and to watch and to enjoy that kind of thing. And my family was involved in rallying for quite a long time, kind of in my primary school years especially. And so it's something that I really loved about being part of it. But I've kind of drifted away from it, as I said. And then the Hyundai team, who are one of the manufacturers in the World Rally Championship at the moment, released a video of kind of an inside the look of Rally Portugal was 2 weeks ago, and they won that rally. And it just recaptured everything for me. It was done so well that I could like almost smell the rubber and the dirt and the gravel that I've experienced when I have been to rallies, and it made me really inspired to go back and go see some rallying again. Unfortunately, I think Rally New Zealand is on an alternate round now, and they don't have a Rally Australia anymore, which is a bit of a bummer. But using that to think about, and I wonder if it might be a little glimpse of new creation anyway, of the things that we truly enjoy.
Rallying in new creation?
Well, it's not in a sense that, but like the sights, the smells, sounds.
Yeah.
Of things that we don't think are that important to our everyday lives, but when they're taken away, and this wasn't forcibly taken away from me to enjoy rallying, but when something is taken away from us and you really miss it. And there's all this discussion about obviously AI is going to replace everything you're doing, but also there is a thing that we've actually have talked about on this podcast before, is that not all technology is progress. That all these labor-saving devices, for example, like the washing machine and dishwasher, are meant to give us way more time. But what we've done is just replace it with more supposed hard work. So now the expectation is you have a dishwasher, because of course you do, because that's what washes your dishes.
Yep.
But it's not a sense of seen in a way of saving you time. It does save you time, but it's not so you can pursue other leisure pursuits kind of thing. So I'm interested in what you think about that. I reckon there is a link here with your talks in new creation and what's missing, what we've lost, as we said. But I'd be interested what you think as well, in terms of like, are there things that you like miss? I was had a discussion with someone the other day about kind of the proliferation of EVs, electric vehicles,
right? Yes,
and that we're all going to turn into a society that just has self-driving vehicles. And when I want to leave here and go to the shopping, I'll press a button on my phone like an Uber, and it'll turn up self-driving, and I'll get in it and take me to where I need to go, and then I can spend more time on my phone or my computer while I'm traveling around. It's the same kind of thing. Whereas as someone who loves driving, like there is a pleasure in driving. There's a pleasure in the sound of a internal combustion engine. There's all those kind of things that you, again, sights, sounds and smells that we think it doesn't matter until they're taken away, and it does matter. What do you reckon?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think a robust theology of creation helps us to articulate why there might be a frustration around some of these technologies that actually remove the physicality. And so the fact that God created a physical universe and created it good, and that even in the redeemed new heavens and new earth, it will be a new creation which is still physical, helps us to see that there is physicality is not a problem. And so there's certain Greek philosophies, there's certain South Asian, sort of Indian type philosophies that are more, the goal of life is to escape the physical and to escape our bodies in different ways. And so, but the Christians and the Jews before Jesus still have a really robust understanding that the physical life is a really, really important part of our life, that we are both spirit and body in a composite. There's different ways of trying to understand the metaphysics there, but the physical is important. And so Christians have gone off track when they have sort of adopted some of these, whether it be sort of a Greek Platonist or whether it be more of an Asian, Buddhist, Hindu kind of things. Wherever we've sort of started to think in terms of only the spiritual really matters and the physical doesn't, or the physical is something to be overcome rather than something to enjoy and live in and appreciate. We've gotten off track. And part of that has been this, when I die, my soul will be with Jesus forever. And it's kind of like, it's almost a half truth, but what it doesn't get to is, no, the goal of the Christian life is not for my soul to live in heaven with Jesus forever. The goal of the Christian life, the goal of the biblical story is that Jesus lives on a physical earth with a resurrected Tim and Joel and all of creation, physically face to face with Jesus, just as he intended, as it was in Adam and Eve in Genesis 1 and 2. So when you hold that theology, then it makes sense that things like losing the physicality of turning paper pages to scroll on a Kindle, there is certain wins to that, economically.
Weight.
You're carrying around a massive textbook versus a very light Kindle device, or even just on your phone, which you're carrying around anyway. There's, self-driving EVs versus a manual car. Like we've got a manual car. I really love it. We've been teaching our son how to drive a manual car. Our daughter will be up at the end of this year to learn how to do it. And the physicality of having to do the clutch and the gears and the brake and the accelerator and put it all together.
And anticipation.
All of that is, really, really great. Like I love that. You asked what I miss. I really miss the feeling of unwrapping a CD.
Oh, okay.
Because that my adolescence, that was the high point, was going to, he was talking about Aaron on the chip lunch with brushes and Sanity and Virgin Records and or going to Word
HMV.
Bookstore or Koorong, getting the Christian CD and getting home and unwrapping the plastic and then having to get your knife in the funny little sticker that they put on to hold the case closed in the store, and then opening up the jewel case and pulling out the CD, opening up the lyric book. Like all of that is real core memory for me. Yeah. And there is something that is lost of the physicality of that in getting to Spotify.
Which is why I think there's a resurgence in records as well.
Yeah.
I think you're right, because I used to love the one that really stuck in my mind in terms of not so much the unwrapping, but what did they put in the booklet and what was the design and everything around that. I used to love that about CDs. And the one that really stuck in my mind was a band that's not super high on my favourites list, was Linkin Park's Meteora.
Okay.
I don't know if you ever remember that, but it was a beautifully designed twofold CD, because it was a double CD.
Okay.
But they put the whole process of recording the album in it. And how they recorded this part, and they record their parts separately, where I was very much in a band or enjoyed bands that only recorded live.
Okay.
So comparing that to someone like Rage Against the Machine, who would record their albums live. So they would play it however many times, but they're like, okay, now we're recording the drums, now we're recording the guitar, but they would always play it live to capture that sound. So, but then obviously that must have been a big part of getting records when you back in the day, when you were able to in the 60s and 70s, well, they're much more available, was like, I understand what this band is communicating to, the art that I'm trying to connect to. That's the physicality that's been presented to me like that is a way of communicating something that, yes, I think we miss when we just go search on Spotify.
Yeah. So on Spotify, the cover art is still important. But again, when you unwrap a physical product, there was always lots more than just the cover art in the booklet. So you got to sort of appreciate that. Article that came up for me during the week was Mike Dicker, a friend of the podcast, Mike Dicker, principal of YouthWorks College. He's got an article on YouthWorks, we'll put this in the show notes, called Navigating Technology. And it's talking about the process of thinking about what are the wins and losses of any new technological change. And so he's got this he goes off Marshall McLuhan. He then goes off someone Dyer, who was this John Dyer, and a couple of other people. So he's kind of collecting all these different thoughts. Andy Crouch is in there, we've talked about before.
Yep.
But he ends up with this diagram. It's a diagram to think about.
Graphic.
That's it. A graphic of how to think about new technologies. And so there's these 4 segments that all kind of pull against each other in different ways, which is just appreciating the fact that there are always going to be wins and losses. So one is that there is an enhancement element. So you're asking, what does this enable me to do? But pulling against that is a obsolescence or a rebellion element of what can I no longer do because of this. So there's something that every technology gives us, is why you wouldn't buy into a new technology if it didn't do something new for you.
Yeah, convenience or whatever.
Convenience, efficiency, cleanliness, more powerful washing technology or whatever. But there's got to be something that you're pulling against as well. You're no longer able to, stand around with the family, with everyone at the sink, debriefing the day while someone washes, someone dries, someone puts away. So there's something that's lost in the fact that you just load the dishwasher and then disperse and go do your own things or whatever you do next. So there's something that you're no longer able to do. Pulling in the other direction, there's sort of a retrieval, a redemptive, a positive. What will I no longer have to do? So there was a frustration in my existence that I no longer have to engage in. So I no longer have to shell out $30 for every album that I want to listen to. I now have a freedom to actually listen to far more diverse music than I'm able to. And one of the things that I've really liked, I think I've said this before, is going back to the late 90s, early 2000s, the golden age of music, because that's when I was a teenager. Right? Everyone thinks this when everyone thinks their teenage years was the golden age of music. But going back and listening to the albums that I know that I missed out on because I couldn't afford it. I couldn't afford to buy every album that I wanted to. And so I can go back and I can listen to, that's what I had a single, but I didn't have the whole album. Wow, that's cool. So I get to do something.
I was just as an point. I was listening on Spotify.
Yeah,
I was listening to one of my favorite AC/DC album, which is Let There Be Rock. It finished, and then it creates just a playlist of all similar artists that includes AC/DC.
Right. Yeah.
And you're like, that's right. That's not that song. Oh, that song. This is a great song. So exactly what.
So the algorithm allows me to do new things, but pulling against that, there's sort of a reversal restoration. What will I now have to do because of this? And so the actual example that he gave is about music. So music on Spotify, you're able to listen to an enormous catalogue, more than you could ever own. But pulling against that, you're no longer able to control access to that catalogue. And so notice this on Spotify, probably even more so on things like Netflix and these streaming platforms, where there's a show that you were watching and then they just arbitrarily or for whatever licensing reason just pull the show. And you thought, it's on Netflix, I get to watch this show now, but arbitrarily they didn't get to take it away. Whereas when I had the DVDs, it could never be taken away from me. I owned it. It was always there for me to go back to. So you've got these pulling apart. Access is easy, but ownership is not mine. So they kind of pull against each other. Likewise, I no longer have to buy albums on CD or limit our library to what you can physically carry in books.
Similar to a Kindle,
Yeah. But I need to have internet access and pay a subscription for the rest of my life. So there's always wins and losses. There's always things we can do, can't do, pull against. Trade-offs, yeah. And so I think it's worth asking, what are we trading? And one of the theologies to build in around this, and Mike doesn't go here with his thing, but is this theology of creation and theology of physicality, and not being really careful we don't trade away. What we're trading away is not more of what actually makes us human. I think that's a really key part of it. That so we want to embrace technologies that allow us to be more human, but there's always a temptation that what the technology is giving us is the ability to be less human than we would otherwise be. That's really something we need to be really aware of, and comes into a lot of the conversations we've had about digital technologies and AIs and efficiencies and all these kinds of things as well.
It can actually be sold as something that does make us more human, but social media would be an example. Is that social media is probably more deforming to the human.
Yeah, that's right.
Human flourishing than actually not having it. Yeah,
and the promise of early Facebook was community.
connecting with everyone.
Connecting with everyone. You can connect with everyone.
Mm.
So it promised connection, community, meaningfulness, happiness, etc. All of the benefits we get with that. And we're now, 16, 20 years later, however old Facebook is, realizing that it actually did the exact opposite. And for a while people were scratching their heads, and now because of people like Jonathan Haidt and many others, we've realized, this is why. It actually deformed us. It didn't help us to be more human, create more connections, which created better community. It actually fractured our communities. It fractured our relationships and gave us disincarnate, depersonalized relationships, which has had the deforming effects we would expect.
Yeah, and something I've heard people say to me before is that, I used to be on Instagram to stay up to date with my friends. Yeah. And because Instagram started originally as a photo posting platform.
Yes.
That's where I remember I downloaded it because one of our friends, people that you and I both know, were getting married, and they're like, take your photos and put it on Instagram and use this hashtag for the wedding, and you'll be able to see all the photos from the wedding. But now people because of you are the product on a free platform like Facebook or Instagram, they have to adjust the algorithm to keep making money for the people that are actually paying for it, the advertisers. And so you get caught up in a algorithmic jail, cage, let's say cage, not a jail, of, I'm still on it. So you're getting content that you like, you're getting content that is interesting, that keeps you on the platform, but may not be the best thing for you long term. And it's almost, people say that in a way of, I wish I could get off, but I can't.
Yeah, well, we end up getting trapped in these things, and part of that, there's a whole psychology around there. There's a whole lot of neurobiology going on there. There's science of addictions and those kinds of bits and pieces. So, we need to be aware of those kind of things. People can be, there's all sorts of people who at the very high level argue about whether it's technically addiction, biochemistry or not. But for all intents and purposes, it's an addictive type technology, and we get addicted to the responses, we get addicted to the stimulation, we get addicted to the dopamine hits of content. So all of that is true. What's really interesting is the other thing is what is called the, you might need to bleep this, of social media, which is a technical term that people have used to talk about the way that the platforms who started out as a social benefit of, I get to see all my friends, have slowly degraded to a point where actually most of what I see is being fed by the algorithmic system and is not by people that I want to see. And so, you've probably experienced this if you're on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, any of the main ones. I don't know how Snapchat and TikTok work, but actually TikTok is not about friends at all, really. It's just all about algorithmic content.
Yep.
But for those people, like we got onto these platforms to watch our friends and to share in their lives. And, again, there was a false community that's being communicated there. But what's really key is that it has moved to being primarily stuff that it will promote to you, and you actually miss out. Majority of what you're seeing is not your friends and not the people you actually care about. It's the algorithm pushing things to you. What I've liked so far about Substack is that there's a little toggle at the top of your feed where you can switch between For You, which is what we think you're out from the algorithm we think you want to watch, versus following. So I'd never go to For You. I always have following, because even then there's enough people who are sharing other things that they know for me to have more than enough content. I can't keep up with the number of people that I'm interested in, and the writings that they write are interesting, informative and helpful for me. So I don't need the algorithm telling me what I want. There are the people who I've curated for myself. So I like that that's still an option, that they haven't bought in fully to that, or at least you can opt out of an algorithmic feed there.
Well, I think because talking of Substack, I saw one of David Perel, who we've talked about before a number of times. He's got a How I Write podcast, and he interviews Yann Martel, who's the author of the book The Life of Pi, and he's basically asking the question: would you use AI to write? So Perel started with became a blog that became very popular, and it was about writing, and he sold a course about how to get better at writing and how you can use it to make money and things like that. And he asks Yann Martel, would you use AI to write? And he's like, why would I? It'd be like hiring someone to have sex for you. And I think, but then he goes on to saying, anything creative, why would I want to use it when it's a very creative language that I like? I'd rather read a bad short story by a human than a good one by a computer. And he says that we'll tire of the AI slop, as we've talked about before, what's been supposedly produced in mass by AI. And he says what you want in art is connection, and it's connection with another human being. I think that comes back to your theology, your creation theology as well, and the physicality is that we want creation, we want connection with a human being. Like even now, you and I prefer doing podcasts. We've done podcasts online before via Zoom, etc. But I prefer having podcasts. So you and I I can read your mannerisms. I can can see if you're actually enjoying what I'm saying. But things like that. It turns out to be a better podcast.
Yes.
It's less turn taking compared to connection and interaction. You and we might accidentally talk over the top of each other, but it doesn't sound stilted because there's still that delay of talking online that you always get. So that connection piece, how does that play into the physicality you're talking about, and why are we in danger of losing that connection between just even you or another human? Yeah,
so another really great article to bring in to the conversation here is by Alan Noble, who's another one that I really appreciate his Substack writing, his book writing. So he's got an article on Substack called Presence in an Age of AI Reproduction. So we can put that in the link below as well. His other part of a theology of creation, I guess, is sort of a subsection of that, is this theology of presence. So he talks about the importance of actual presence being key. And so one of the things he says that while machines will be able to generate creative works that mimic human creativity, one of the values that they'll never be able to offer is presence. Behind a wedding vow written by ChatGPT, there is no I who says I do. Behind the pop-punk breakup song you generated on Suno, there is no I who shares his teenage experience of getting dumped. There is only output. What humans can offer that machines cannot is presence and intentionality of being there to create for others. So he talks about, it sounds, a lot of the things he talks about are the same kind of what you mentioned, the other author, about I'd rather have something that was less perfect but human than perfect and artificially generated, because the humanness, the presence and the creativity of the actual I, the person behind the writing, the music, the artistry, whatever it is actually meaningful. So he finishes, behind these words, behind someone's song or painting or poem, stands a human person made in the image of God with all the mystery and wonder of their own being. The question before us is, does it matter that when we resonate with a creative work that we are being addressed by someone, or do we just care about our emotions? So the actual, the humanness of the other person matters. Yes. It matters that they created this work, they wrote this work, they thought about it and did the hard work of putting this thing together. Whether it be a podcast description, whether it be an article, whether it be a image, they put in the hard work of articulating this artifact that you are consuming. And so the humanness of the other person, I think, is something that Alan Noble is kind of drawing out there. And I think that matters. Why is it hard? Like, why are we going to struggle with this? Because, again, we've been trained to think about efficiency, about speed. We've traded hard for easy. And again, like thinking about the framework that Dicker is setting up in terms of the Marshall McLuhan and others, the there are benefits to these things. Like I'm glad that, neither my wife or I or our kids have to spend, or all of us have to spend all the weekend with the washboard, scrubbing in the tub to get our clothes clean. Like the fact that there is a washing machine, that is a net benefit to our household.
Yeah, you just got to hang it out.
Yeah, that's right. So that's good. We still have to manually push the vacuum cleaner around. We don't have a robot doing that for us. I know.
We did have a robot and it died.
Oh, there you go. That's very sad. But so there's trade-offs. But I think part of that trade-off is constantly thinking, because we rarely trade that extra time for other good things. Like what do I do with that extra time? Is it a good thing? Is it a bad thing? What do I do? There's an interesting idea that one of the most significant technologies of the breakdown of the family relationships is the microwave.
Really?
Because the idea is that the microwave allowed you not to all have to eat dinner at the same time.
Oh, yes. Okay. Yep.
So the ease of technology of everyone heating up the dinner at the same time meant that everyone could be scattered to the four winds, and everyone just comes and just reheats their own dinner at whatever time suits them. It takes away the necessity of being at the table together having the hot meal. So again, there's a trade-off here. There's microwave's brilliant technology, really, really clever. And we use ours all the time. But what are the trade-offs? Have you lost something incarnate, personal, relational, communal because you've done that? And the other one is the advent of the car, because all of a sudden our ability to travel further means that we will travel further. I will travel, half an hour, and the distance I can travel in half an hour by car versus half an hour on foot is remarkably different. So if my time to get to something is, say, half an hour is a reasonable time to get to church, I think there's some interesting statistics on people will travel about 20 minutes to get to a church of their preference.
That's a max amount of time.
Yeah, that's kind of, you can imagine that most people in your church will live within a 20-minute circle around your church. That's kind of a rough guide. Because of the car, that 20-minute circle is much, much, much bigger than if everyone was walking, which means that you've got a lot of your church community that don't live anywhere near each other. And so in fact, you have people in your church community that live up to 40 minutes away from each other if they're on completely opposite sides of that circle. So you lose a sense of deep embeddedness and placeness. We talked about this last week, that placeness and the importance of geographic location and the community that is formed because of that. All these technologies come with trade-offs, and it's important that we think about those things and that we don't just roll with the ease of technology and uncritically adopt every new thing that comes along.
Well, just think about how many people you could spend time with, Tim, if you had a self-driving car.
I did try when I was working for YouthWorks, and I was doing a lot of driving, and my area was kind of where we live up to 3 hours drive down south. So it was quite a big area. Lots of rural when you get to the bottom third of that. And I did advocate. Self-driving cars wasn't really on the cards at the time, but I did advocate for my boss that he should employ me as chauffeur because of all the emails and other productive work I could get done instead of driving. And apparently the budget didn't allow.
I was going to say, how did that go down?
Yeah, no. That conversation didn't get very far.
But there's an interesting thing in that is no, you still needed. I know that's the certain bounds of that particular job, but there's an interesting of no, you have to go and do the job. There's even the physicality in that is you need to go. Now, yes, you can't afford a chauffeur, and it would be time saving, but there's also this element of, I think, the physicality of you going to have to do a job, whether it's actually a physical job outside or you actually unfortunately have to drive a long way to do that. And
one of the things, and people will resonate with this, one of the things we found was in the COVID lockdowns, our first instinct was to go, this is brilliant. I don't have to drive between all these meetings. I can book meetings back to back because I don't need to have a meeting in this suburb and then drive half an hour to get to my next meeting in this suburb and have to factor in all this buffer time. And after a couple of weeks, we were all exhausted and we couldn't trying to work out what is going on here. We're at home, we're in our PJs, we can get a cup of coffee whenever we want. Why are we so exhausted? We're doing less work physically. And we realized that there was a mental tax that was coming. And also because of the type of jobs we do, where we do a lot of how's everyone going, pastoral care, coaching, training, those kinds of things. We're having all these conversations. We're doing them back to back to back. Actually, that half hour to 40-minute drive between different meetings was super essential to our humanness. Our human brain, body, mind needed those breaks in between. So we did kind of debrief as a team together the incarnate realities that come from actually being together physically. And so there was what did we win? I won being able to meet with a lot more people, a lot more regularly, check in on them. Didn't cost me any money in petrol, didn't cost much money with lots of coffees or lunches. There were lots of benefits in some ways. And then we realized that there were some significant deficits that were coming to us as well, because the technology, gave and took away.
Well, because like with online meetings, you need to spend, it's mentally taxing because compared to you and I sitting across from each other now, I can read your body language.
Yes.
And you have to spend so much more mental energy trying to understand people's body language. I think that's the thing we didn't really talk about at that time, was that prime part of communicating with each other is reading each other's body language. And talking to each other and understanding your feelings and understanding your reactions and responses to the things that we would say. It's so much harder online.
And a lot of that is subconscious, so we don't know that we're processing those things. And then just to get weird about it, there's also the whole hormonal pheromone level, which goes on as well.
Yeah, that's true.
Like our bodies are reading each other's pheromones right now, and that is also part of that in-person communication.
Presence and physicality.
Yeah,
that's what's really important about it. Because even my son, he has said, he's just started high school and he's like, I don't want to use AI. And so we're kind of understanding, how do we research things? If you've got to do an assignment, how do you research things? And you can like use the internet as your starting point. But really where we've got to is that, like, if we have any books on this, let's go to books first, because there's the connection to the art of writing where someone has sat down and written for an extended period of time, synthesizing a whole lot of information to write a book that you are now able to consume. Hopefully, I prefer physical books. But it's interesting is that's the kind of solution we came up with, because he's used to you would have seen when you Google something, you get the Google AI answer.
Yes, yeah.
And sometimes you're like, that's not quite right. It's not what I'm looking for. And it's because it's that thing of the machine answering the question. It's not you answering the question yourself. And I think there's an element there of the physicality and the presence that's been taken away. I remember when I used to do assignments, my mum would take me to the library. You could only borrow 2 books on that particular non-fiction topic, but then you would also can photocopy it, but you had to write down what your source was. Like, there was effort even in doing that. Yeah. Whereas I was talking to my wife, she was doing a report for her work and she had to reference it, and she's just punched in all the sources that she had, and ChatGPT referenced it perfectly for her. Yeah. Which is, it's the element, it's the trade-off of like the time saving is great, but the element of working hard to get better at something, to synthesize something, to figure it out is kind of missing from that. Yeah. And I even said to my son, he's like, I've got to do this kind of references. I'm like, see what AI does. And he's like, I don't want it. Yeah. He refused to do it, which was surprising. So as we move forward, we even think about last week, we talked about what do we do now that we've taken the phones away from our children? What do we look forward in this, like the physicality and presence is something like what we've lost is kind of what we've talked about today. Things being taken away and the trade-offs that we make when we choose a technology to replace something. How do you think that we should look forward now? Like, if people are listening to this conversation and we're like, oh, this is an interesting thing. What could we do after this podcast? Yeah, well, let's just put this through the shock absorber framework just to finish off. And I think, again, one of the things that the shock absorber teaches us is that
our youngest generations are at the forefront of these technological changes. So, our kids are kind of at the forefront of these, the AI summaries on Google, and you and I find them frustrating. My daughter doesn't know how to go beyond them. I'm just like, no, you got to actually look at the links. What links? The ones below the AI summary. Oh,
or where it's getting the summary from.
It's like, so teaching it. So, but there are certain efficiencies as well. So our youngest generations who are at the forefront of these cultural changes and digital technologies in particular, they're growing up in a world where this is normative. And so we can learn from that. Okay, what are you seeing here? What makes it efficient? What do you find helpful? And that stops us from doing just the grumpy old man shouting at clouds kind of take, but actually allows us to take seriously the benefits of what they're seeing. And then the maturity of a shock absorber says, yeah, okay, and let me help you see it from my perspective and see if you notice anything that's going on here. So when you give books to your son and go, oh, what about this? Or you take him to the library and those kinds of things. And they can say, oh, okay, I can now see it from your perspective as well. So you're helping to sharpen each other. And along the way, I think we're working out how to do these things well and what are going to be the good uses of some of these technologies. Is it okay for a program, whether it be one of these large language models or whether it be more specific programs, I use EndNote, which is just a bibliography referencing system, and it's going to be able to, it already can, like well before generative AI. Yeah. You had already things loaded in there. It could search the web, it could find the source it would put in there, and you just put it in a collection and then hit bibliography, and it'll be able to spit it out, copy and paste it into the back end of your assignment. So does that, it can do that, and it's saving me having to physically myself type name, title,
page number,
page numbers, publication date, location date, like all of the kind of stuff you have to put into your indexing. It does it for you, and it's got really smart integration into a lot of word processing documents where you can just automatically add bits and pieces. So all those technologies, we're trying to work out, okay, is it important that I know how to reference, or is it okay to let technology do that for me? And you're trying to work out on that. It is. Is it okay for me to understand how to write the flow of an argument, or is it okay if generative AI does that for me and I just copy and paste because, I inputted it so I at least know what the question was? Somewhere in the middle there is the helpful answer between having to type out your own bibliography to having ChatGPT write your essay for you. There is somewhere in that tension, and that's what the shock absorber is helping us to do, is we explore with others, look at different experiences. And so I think it's good to be wise about technology. It's good to be careful. This is why we start with theology, go through strategy before we get to practice, is because it's good to know why we do what we do, and knowing about our humanness and the physicality of our beings, that hard work is not part of the fall. Hard work was pre-fall. And so there is something that is beneficial to the human body, mind, soul, that involves hard work. So completely digitizing, completely technologicalizing, that's not a word, but all of our life, we're going to notice some deficits. And I think the shock absorber helps us to adapt new technologies with the wisdom of the aged mentors, the vitality of the young, and to work out together as a culture and as churches how we're going to be able to do this well.
I love it. Yeah. Well, thank you very much.
Thank you, Joel.
It's been another engaging podcast. Well, for me it has anyway. Hopefully it has been for listeners and watchers. And if you want to get in contact with us, you can email me, joel@shockabsorber.com.au, or you can drop a comment on our YouTube videos. And you can also sign up for the Shock Absorber Network by going to shockabsorber.com.au, and you can jump on the mailing list there. But with that said, thank you very much, Tim.
Thank you, Joel.
Thank you to everyone listening and watching. And as always, we finish with one way.